Thank you so much, Anna. I'm afraid in the beginning I have to play a little bit by the cards of my predecessors has done in this event. I'll start by two quotes and listen to these quite carefully. I ask you all. So the first one goes: "People are starving, freezing. They're probably ill. I've tried 16 to 17 games, haven't succeeded yet." The second one is: "Migrants are like poison to the body." The first quote is from a refugee on the southern border of Hungary, who is referring to these 16, 17 times as games as he has tried to cross the border between Serbia and Hungary in search for a better life. And the second one is from the prime minister of the country he was trying to enter, from Prime Minister Viktor Orban, saying that migrants are basically like poison to the body. And it's really important here to see the distinction of how different our concepts about this whole process can be. And in this short presentation, I will talk to you about how this whole refugee and migrant crisis since the mid 2010s has been basically determining Hungarian discourse and European discourse as well. What we are seeing now, I believe, is that the crisis is moving from outside the border or inside the border to the border itself. And we are facing quite a big challenge, not just in Hungary, but also on a European level. There's no single asylum policy. There's no something that we can do to come up with a viable solution. Obviously, migration and the freedoms are vital to the European Union. And I think the internal dimension of migration has been vital for the European integration as well. And if we see migration and we see migration tendencies as something toxic to Europe, then we'll not be able to have a prosperous future. And because of this attitude from many countries, and it's unfortunately it's not just my country, not just my leadership. We see that through migration, the whole rhetoric, the whole policies are being securitized. And by securitization, here I mean they're trying to attribute a certain security aspect to migration. And you would ask, like, what is this security that is being attributed to migration? On the one hand, obviously, it is about the security of people crossing. There's people drowning, as we have heard before. But there's also the security of the integrity of the European Union, according to some. And for example, as you have heard it from the quote, someone are curious about what these people from outside would do to the integrity, to the homogeneity of European society. And I think it is something that is really, really important to understand, is that, for example, in the priorities of the French presidency, this sovereignty of Europe and the security of Europe has to go somewhere hand in hand. And I think what really conceptualizes this is responsibility and solidarity. All European leaders, not just with an external border, have a very important duty to solve this crisis, because this is not something that one country can solve its own by building up a fence, as we saw in 2015 in Hungary, for example, but it's a shared responsibility. But we also need to show solidarity towards each other, helping out each other, and also towards the people entering our territories, because they are fleeing so much worse conditions. And as you could hear from this Syrian refugee guy who has tried for a better life to escape worse conditions on the southern border of Hungary, to enter 16, 17 times. I honestly, I can't really imagine how bad it could be for them being in these conditions, leaving up everything and then coming to a country which language they don't know at all, just searching for a better life. And the reputation of migration has been, I think, undergoing a process that is very toxic to the European discourse. And now here I will shift from securitization to rhetoric and the terminology. So, for example, in Hungary, everyone who's coming from outside is a migrant, regardless of it is a refugee, an asylum seeker. It can be anyone searching for a better territory. It is being labeled as a migrant, and they can be well educated. They can be a professor. They can be anything. They're labeled as a migrant, and we hate migrants, and that is the rhetoric. Currently, there are around 15 to 20,000 people in Serbia, and as you can tell from the news, there are also border crossings happening, mostly illegally, some legal as well, towards Hungary. And here it's also important to talk about what the Hungarian government uses this for. It uses to reinforce their statement of being the protectors of Hungarian people, of being protectors of Hungarian sovereignty. And internal dimensions of Hungary of migration has been with us for years. Hungarians have been migrating during the World Wars, during the Revolution of 1956, and it seems that people have been forgetting how hard of a conditions they were seeing, how hard it was for them, and they show no solidarity at all. But they need to show responsibility when they need to turn up and need to enforce, for example, those quotas that has been assigned to them. So it's something that's been really bothering the Orban government, and has been using it for their own good. Obviously, migration is a really focal point of the campaign for the upcoming elections in April. And also what we can see, not just in the Orban government, but also in Europe, is how controversies and binaries are determining the discourse. The terminology, for example, it's the Europeans and the migrants. There's always someone else we are referring to, someone outsider, someone trying to enter our territory, and then we need to be against it. We need to come up with something to solve the problem. And through these binaries, I think politicians, parties, governments, both left and right wing, can really use this for their advantage, and I really don't like it how they're using it for their political internal advances. And I see this as quite a big problem in rhetoric, and what we need to think about more really is what kind of conditions these people are experiencing. And just once again to reaffirm myself, it's about responsibility and solidarity. And I thank you all for listening.
Thank you a lot, Balázs, for this insightful explanation. Also, I think also it was really deserved and really important to speak about this this evening. Well, then I suggest we move on to the